So I only have the chance to show you one end of the world, unfortunately. Come back tomorrow, I'll show you another. So that is westernmost point of Europe, mainland. Okay, Ireland is a little westernmost than us, but mainland, we can say that we're with. Let's take advantage of the coast, and at some point we'll be surrounded by nature before we go to Sintra. Sintra will be a little bit different, okay, but I'm not stepping over some faces, so here we go. Hear the microphone again, you know that I'm not going to sing, I'll leave that for the end, but not to miss me. Here we go.
So, as I was saying, we're going now to follow the coast. So we're just going around and we go to the other side. We'll have the natural part of Cascais, which is by the ocean. You'll have always the coastline around us and also some details that I'm going to show you. But since I was talking about the end of the world, we have it, that denomination, and usually was attached with the sailors. The sailors at some point thought that the boats would actually fall from the horizon to nowhere, so they actually were the ones who started to call it the end of the world. Now it's just an attachment, we have that historically, but all good, no one falls from there, even because I'm a sensitive person, so careful, don't go over the fence. One thing, since we're talking about the westernmost point of Europe, mainland, we can realize that the closest city continentally from here that we will have, the closest, will actually, if we ignore the UK, if we ignore Iceland, Portuguese and Spanish islands, we actually have New York as the closest continental city from here, okay? I actually saw a movie and I felt like because of that movie I realized that if you're a good swimmer and if you get a proper current, that's important, you'll actually get to New York in about 1 hour and a half, easy. I've seen that on Finding Nemo. Turtles were very fastly going. Let's not do it today. Like I said, I'm sensitive, so let's save it for another guide, for another day. Let's not experiment today, okay? And don't go over or under the fences because you will be windy. That area is super windy, there's no protection over it. So take advantage of the views. The views are incredible, okay? The view is actually very, very nice. We'll have the chance to see two places. Usually it's very foggy. It doesn't look like it's going to be foggy today there, but let's pray because that's a microclimate always around. So let's pray for us not to actually have the fog surrounding us. This is actually one of the places where the settlers left, usually to actually conquer some other areas and to go for the colonies. This was one of the areas close to a port that we actually have the caravel settled. So we'll have that. Enjoy now because you'll be surrounded by nature at some point, and at some point we'll be again next to the ocean, so it's a stunning view if it is not fog. Take advantage also for pictures because usually it's covered with a white wall of fog and we can't see anything, so let's take advantage of that. Cascais. Like I was saying, from now on you'll have this type of house right here. This is the one that is more related to the thematic here in Cascais. These big houses. Usually they have a small attachment like golf courts, tennis courts. Small thing, humble thing considering the area that we are. But bad views like the ones you have here on the right side, awful view to the ocean. Difficult lives. Small things. Also, one thematic, one curiosity. You'll start to have these small fortresses on the left side. If you actually go to Belém in Lisbon, if you actually follow this whole coast, you have a few of those. Most of them, they look abandoned, but this was very strategic at some point. So this coast is so strategic that the position of it allowed us to send the boats all over in the world. It's right in the middle of the globe, so we had an easier way to actually access. And the river, for example, the river that we have in Lisbon, that river is born in Spain, ends up in Lisbon, and that's the attachment to the ocean. So we take it as a highway back in the days. Of course, the Spanish and French always wanted to conquer this coast to actually control the commerce. So at some point, to defend the coast, we actually had the need to build these small fortresses. There were in total 23 at some point, and we actually had it from Lisbon to Guincho, which is the end of Cascais. We'll actually pass by the last one. It's actually the only one that is active. There is only 3 of them active. The other 20, let's say, some of them collapsed, but there is a few of them that they are only taken nowadays for sightseeing or even abandoned in ruins, but belongs to the government. Those were to defend the coasts from the attacks, as I was saying, but even like that, we actually been conquered by the Spanish, which we call the Philippine coast. The kings were Philips, so that's the dynasty that we had attached to the Spanish. But then in 1807 we also been conquered by Napoleon, so we also have that attachment. And this coast was the one he was commanding, and very strategic for him as well. Then we conquered it back, and we had the king back from Brazil. That was funny because the king, basically this area was conquered, and the king, since we had a colony in Brazil, he moved to Brazil and he settled the capital of Portugal, being Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Very functional to have a capital of a country in the other side of the ocean. So it was very strategic and functional, as you can imagine. This one is mainly known for the fishing nowadays, but this is actually very good for surfing with south wind, no wind, and different swells. But also very popular for kite and windsurfing because of the wind right here. The north is the predominant, so that's the one we have the most, but by gusts. So when it's north wind, it's usually very cold, and sometimes it's dangerous because of the gusts. The gusts sometimes are strong, and takes you against the cliffs. The structure I was talking about, that we still reutilize it instead of demolishing, it's that yellow fortress on the left side, right in front of us now. That one is a Michelin star restaurant / hotel. The other one active, the Belém Tower in Lisbon, and the last one will not see it, or it's not that important, but it's a military base in between those two cities, Cascais and Lisbon. It's in an area called Carcavelos. That's the biggest one, but it's right in the sense that it was mainly to actually have the boats, and it needed more space for the military actually to manage. This one right here is the natural part of Cascais, the protected area as well, so it's not too crowded, doesn't have much buildings, some establishments. We don't have many of those, even because the coast on the right and all this area, you have succulents and you have some wildlife in here that is protected, so we cannot do any type of construction, or we cannot actually build anything over. So from now on, this will be more or less the view until we get to the middle of the natural park, and then I will attach one other thing. I will ask for you to take a mental picture from that beach that we'll pass at the end, because I will give you some curiosities along the way. Also, this is protected. The sand dunes, this is so windy that the sand dunes, they're always changing places. Sometimes we literally have the sand dunes in the middle of the road. We need to actually stop, clean the roads for us to pass. Sometimes you have the dunes right in the middle of where we're passing now. From here to the left, you can already see on the edge the westernmost point of Europe. That's where you're going to go. That's perfect because it means, by seeing it, it means that we don't have the fog, so that's good. It was not cheap. I just required to St. Peter yesterday to have good weather today, so you're welcome. Okay, take advantage of it. Okay, here we go. So this one here is the one that I was telling you to take a mental picture to, because we'll see it from a lot of different sides, a lot of different perspectives. But I'll have just one small curiosity to actually share with you, so just for you to have an idea. But you can see the example of the sand dunes and the sand right in the middle of the road already. Sometimes it's funny because everyone parks on the dunes and then no one can take the car out. So it's interesting. Already by the casino, we've passed by that hotel that I was mentioning right next to the casino. We've doing these roads and we just passed by that beach that I told you to memorize it. This is all involved in one thing, of course, to introduce the most famous spy in the whole world. Guess that everyone has a name. So to introduce James Bond. We have these roads and I always remember of him when we do this and this type of side of the country. It's always, my head always leads me to James Bond, even when we attach the casino with it. So those 4 places that I was mentioning reminds me of him because there was actually a movie that was filmed in here. Specifically here we had a fight between agents that in that beach that we just passed down there, followed by a car chase in these roads that we're doing. So always remembers me of it. This was a movie filmed in 1969. The name is The Secret Service of Your Majesty. The actor, you've just done it once. He was an Australian, Late Lazenby. He was the one who actually did the character. Not only because of the movie that I always introduce James Bond, but because of the fact that the movie and the character itself, the character was inspired in Cascais to be created. Okay, so this was actually during the Second World War, and being Portugal always neutral on war, we've never been participating on a war, we're always neutral. We're sissies, we like to go to the beach and having fish, we don't go for war. Ice cream and fish by the ocean, we're good at it. At least everyone that I know, that's a special tricks. So in my opinion, it's also that's my superpower. Being next to the ocean, surfing, fresh fish after. Oh, I'm happy. Everything can be burning around. If I look to the skies, blue skies. Oh, perfect. So in the war, Second World War, being Portugal's neutral, we actually gave certain security to the families that were in war. So basically, the noble class families of the countries in war, they moved to Portugal for safeness. It was actually safer to be here. The governments of the countries where they belong to got afraid of some type of deal. They were so imponent that those families could actually do a partnership or a type of a deal in between themselves who could actually change the course of war. Government started to get afraid out of it and they sent spies. There were sent spies from several countries, several different countries, even ones that were not in war, it was just to control the families. there was over 1,500 spies in between Lisbon and Cascais. Even because there was a train rail, it was going straight from Paris to Lisbon and to here. So it was easier for the spies to arrive. So that being said, one of the spies was named Ian Fleming, the one who actually created the character. So he felt inspired in here. He had a mission of spying in 4 spies, 4 agents. One of them got him inspired to create a character. He was actually known here in Cascais as the tricycle. That's one of the characteristics Ian Fleming took to the character of James Bond. He was known as the tricycle because he was always around with 2 ladies with him. So the playboy kind of thing is related to that type of nickname, and by the fact that he was always with ladies. Also, one other, there is actually the martini with the olive and spices. It was not a martini, that was Ian Fleming who created and gave the character more personality and character, because it was always a random drink. It was not martini specifically. That was just to actually get creativity. So, that being said, we still have some passages, and since everyone is in Lisbon, if you're curious about it, there is one that it's for free, and you will understand precisely what I'm saying, because you have the Rocio station right in the center of Lisbon. That's one of the most historical stations we have. And when that thematic of the spies was actually happening, and it happened fast, those stations where the train was coming from Paris, they actually created hotels right next. It was not precisely because of the spies, but to actually get money. So they built right on the next side. So the spies took advantage of that. So they actually created from the 2nd floor of the station, which is a platform where the train arrived, there is a passage to the 4th floor of the hotel. And that allowed the spies to not be seen or recognized when they actually arrived to the station. They passed to the hotel, they left from the hotel back door, and they will not be seen, okay? Since you're in Lisbon, if you actually want to know and see more about it, you have those. Also, we have several canals underground, even for the maintenance of the trams and the trails and all that. We need to go down under the road, and the downtown of Lisbon is like a web that is all like passages that were before structures itself, tombs, arches, and that's all related still with the Romans. Nowadays we need to maintain, because as I told you in the morning, we have those wooden columns, so we can still pass, and there is tours who actually do the undergrounds and the passages in the ground. If you're curious about it, you can actually do it. It's very nice. There is a few days for you to do it. I think it's Tuesday and Fridays that you can do it in the morning, okay? You have to appoint it, but very nice. We're now around, and we'll have this all around from now on. We'll have this type of nature, which is natural in here. This one here is the vegetation you have all around the country, and those are considered protected areas. So we have the natural park of Sintra that will become way more intense than now, but this is the typical nature, the typical vegetation we have, okay? In Sintra that will change, but I will explain you why, okay? From now on, just take advantage, because we're arriving to Cabo da Roca, so I'll give you more details in there, but take advantage of these views. So everything changed now again. So we're arriving. That lighthouse in front of us is actually Cabo da Roca. That's the main lighthouse that we have around here. Also very curious because it's one of the two lighthouses that is still managed manually. There is a family who actually is responsible for the management and the functionality of the lighthouse. But it's only needed one person there. Is not actually automatic because this is super foggy and there is a lot of storms, so we have rock falling. So what happens is, like, sometimes we have the radars, we have the tide measurements, and it needs to be manually with someone there to actually send the information to the boats and to actually the radars around here. So that is mandatory. That's why we have someone in here. The other lighthouse that I'm mentioning is actually the southest place in Portugal, not Europe at this time, but Portugal, called Sagres. Same as the beer, same name. This one will have two views that I'm going to actually let you know where to do it, but two views that I recommend a lot today because you have this majestic weather. So there will be a column with a cross on top. That is actually a column where we have part of a poem. The poem is written by one of the main writers from the country, Luís de Camões, the one we followed with Vasco da Gama to the discovery of India. I kind of hate him. I have a hate-love relationship with him because I had to study him in school. Was not nice to do exams about what he wrote, and he's not the worst. There is two that I hate more than him, so he's in the third place. It's not bad. There is another one called Saramago. He never used punctuation, so we don't know where the emotions, feelings, who's talking. You read it 4 times for you to understand. But that's it. This is not that bad. Now, you'll have the precise coordinates on that column, exactly where we are. That's a cool picture for you to prove that you've been here. But from the right, or from the column to the right, you can see the cross immediately now. To the right you have the north coastline, which is a majestic view. But if you go to the left side, always following the fence in the inside, you can actually have kind of a ruin. It's a beautiful view to the beach that we've been, and also caves on the cliff. That is incredible. Okay, I'll give you enough time to do it, so I'll give you around 20 minutes.